Welcome to the podcast where we take a deep dive into the stories behind construction business leaders. We will share how they got started, how they found success, and the lessons learned along the way. I'm your host, Eric Fortenberry. Welcome to Builder Stories. Welcome back, everybody. I am excited to have Tommy and Tara Holstein joining us today from Solid Ground. They are located in Wentzville, Missouri, and they do custom decks, outdoor living, kitchens, patios, all sorts of everything outside in the backyard. So we're very excited to have these two joining us today on Builder Stories. I guess they've worked with our company, JobTread, for a while now. I've seen that they've built a really incredible business. So they're going to tell us a little bit about how they've gone from just one person to, I think, around 20 employees now. So we're excited to hear the story. But Tommy, Tara, welcome to Builder Stories. Happy to have you on. So why don't you all just kind of give us a quick little background on who you are, how'd you get into construction, what's your business look like today?
All right, of course. I'll let you start.
Getting into construction was it was always in me. I mean, building things, or from building a ramp as a kid and trying to jump, with your bike or skateboard, to scaling that up and building huge half pipes, and acquiring material from job sites that might have been in scrap piles that turned into forks or whatever. That was the build always excited me. I liked building things. I liked putting things together, taking things apart. Never imagined that being a career. That was just something fun to do. And it was something growing up. I saw my dad do it, saw my grandfather, build with their hands, but that wasn't their career. My grandfather was a stockbroker and probably the best woodworker I'd ever known. And those things have nothing to do with each other. So I never saw that as a career or as a trade or anything. As a kid, houses just existed. You didn't realize that there's somebody pulling the pipe, there's somebody running the wire, there's somebody, pouring forms and foundations, and, all of that just existed. And then you get into this wonderful world of working in the trades, and it's like some of the coolest, hardest working people I've ever met. You get to build some really cool stuff, So it just kind of happened. I guess the start was building we built a deck on our first home, and it was just, to me, it was just building a deck. It was a 16 by 36, I believe, cedar deck. It was pretty elaborate. Had a starburst center. All the boards came out at a 45 from the center, and picture frame, and all the stuff that's normal today. But this was 20 years ago, and I don't know, people weren't doing that around here. I was kind of just playing around, I thought, and Tara said,
he was doing it like after hours, so nights and weekends, and his dad was helping him. And I just remember coming home and watching the build every day progress and seeing the detail work that he was doing. My gosh, it was just incredible. And one day after I came home from work, I'm looking at it and I'm like, hey, this is what you should be doing for a living. Like, you need to share this talent. And he thought I was crazy, but we both come from a very strong entrepreneurship background with our families, and specifically our fathers owning their own companies, and it just started from there. So he enjoys being outside too. So we were called Barefoot decks at one point for a reason, because this guy likes to build stuff in his flip flops. Just saying.
Nice. I mean,
that's much anymore.
No.
I think starting something, out of a passion is, that's just such a great, foundation to have, because, obviously being an entrepreneur is not easy, and there have probably been a ton of challenges that have come your way that I'm sure we'll dig into here, but like just having that genuine passion for building is just a great thing to have, for you to be able to fall back during those tough times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
So what year was it when you decided to start the company?
I think '08, we actually went into business in '08. Prior to that, we had a few businesses that we did well with, but it was it just never it just wasn't it.
Yeah.
I when I was in the military, I was broke 18-year-old kid. Started doing car stereo stuff on the side because that's what I grew up doing. Started making more money doing that than I was in the service, and that became a business for a long time. But it really it was just out of necessity, and it was fine. Did that for several years. That had kind of run its course, and stepped away from that. I was working sales for another company, and she saw that I wasn't really satisfied. I wasn't unhappy. I just didn't have that satisfaction. Like sales, I love sales. I love the hunt, helping people find the things they want, the competition for sure, But she saw that spark was kind of missing, and I had it when I was building. We're literally working from, some days it was like a Saturday and Sunday. You work from sun up to sundown, and I loved it. But yeah, for 100%, I thought she was out of her mind. Like who's paying me to come build a deck in their backyard? Like that just didn't seem like a reality, But then it was.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, first off, appreciate your service. Thank you for everything you did there. I'm curious. So in the beginning, like it sounds like it was just you. You were selling the jobs, building the jobs, managing everything, wearing all the hats as any entrepreneur would. What was it like trying to get this thing off the ground? Where did you get your first customers? Like, how did all that sort of transpire? Because I see a lot of people sort of struggle to think how, the same thought you had. Who would pay me to do this?
Yeah. I mean, with anything. But people will pay you to do anything if you're passionate about it, So where do we get customers? I think in the beginning it was word of mouth, big time. And it kind of happened a little bit organically. Like, we built a deck for a friend of a friend, and it kind of like then that person's friend, and then it was, can you build this? And I never turned down a job because when you're young and when you're hungry, you're like, man, where's the next job coming from? So you would do anything. You take on any job. And but for a long time, it wasn't a business, or it wasn't operated like a business. It was really, I treated it like a job. And I think a little bit because I didn't believe that this could really be sustainable. But it was enough for me to live, making wages, if you will. And, I was that guy that was probably undercutting every other deck builder, unbeknownst to me, like I'm just like, hey, this is what I think I can build it for. And, if you're happy with that price, I'm happy with the build, write me a check when we're done. And that's the way we did it in the beginning. And then you realize that most of the income, supporting our family was like the sales and the build process, and all of that kind of consumed a lot of just building the business. You're taking the profits and you're dumping it back into buying tools, buying trucks, buying trailers, buying insurance. Like, oh my gosh, insurance, But then, Tara having a business background, I mean, I had a leg up, really. I had the, like almost like a roadmap to build a business. I knew how to swing the hammer. I knew how to cut a straight line and make a pretty deck. And I ultimately had to go back to college because I had some learning to do on the business side of things, and learning things that I probably don't even need today because of all the programs that are available. But yeah, it was tough in the beginning. It was just trying to figure out, where do you find customers? Like, anybody need a deck? Call me. And Um, but it just worked. It just, we kept at it. We tried a lot of different avenues for advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Some worked really well. Some were very expensive and did nothing. And, you just got to kind of throw some ideas out there and see what sticks. And then once you figure out what sticks, capitalize on that. Build, if this investment into these leads gave me, this kind of return, well, then 10 times that investment, in theory, should give me 10 times return. And a lot of times it did. You'd put ads out and you'd have too much work. And now I wouldn't say we have too much work, but we're probably booked out 6 months, 8 months at any given time. And no longer have a slow season. So it's different,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's pretty great.
Yeah. So Tara, what in the beginning, what were you doing? Did you have a full-time job? Were you just kind of his, it sounds like you really were the spark and encouraged Tommy to go out and do this.
Yes.
But like what was your role early on, and kind of at what point, did you end up coming on full-time with the business?
Yeah, actually the full-time didn't happen, I guess 3 years ago.
3.5 years ago.
Yeah, and before that, I was in corporate finance. So my background is operations and fiscal operations and finance, and I was basically a DFO. I don't know if anybody knows that acronym, but you got CFO, DFO, that's who I was. And I'd oversee all like the finance and accounting and operations of various companies. I've come from different industries. I've done higher education, I've done hospitality, I've done human services, but it's all the same. It's all numbers, it's all operations, it's all policy procedures. So everything that I learned in that 15, 16 plus years, I took that and applied it with our own company. And about 3 years ago, I said, okay, I'm ready. And he said he was too, and here we are.
Yeah.
Within 3 years, we went from 1 employee to 20 employees, and yeah, it's incredible to be able to see not only it happen, but to be able to be the person that makes it happen. There's just something about that. He talks about his passion with the build. My passion with the operations of the business, making sure that it happens and watch that grow. So, yeah.
So Tommy, you went basically solo owner operator for over 10 years.
Yeah.
To now you bring on Tara and the business just explodes.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty awesome. I hope you're paying well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny, like, I don't know, you always hear, like, people say things like, my business, and I'm like, man, I had a job for a long time, and I loved it. Like, don't get me wrong, I was in a really good place, I was building some cool projects, and I miss a lot of that. I mean, there's a lot of it I miss. I miss the simplicity of it. I miss the being on the job site every day, swinging the hammer, the interaction with the clients. Now I'm more like sitting at a desk, and I'm building in a different way. I'm building a business with my wife now, but the business really was built. It was the two of us building it together, but it really was. It took really listening to. Or trusting, I guess, why we should do certain things, why we should invest in programs, why we should invest in training and knowledge-based type stuff. And I'm like, I know how to build a deck. I don't need, certain programs, job trade included. Like,
when you say programs, you mean software, by the way.
What's that?
When you say programs, you mean software.
Whatever, yeah, that stuff. You run a business a certain way because it works for you. And for me, it worked to have a notebook. And I could tell you, like, if Mrs. Johnson calls, hey, I talked to you 2 years ago, and I probably remember the color notebook that my notes are in from her drawings and her project. I probably know about how far back in the book it goes. Like, it was my system, and it worked really well.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work well when you scale that business.
So
And
what made you decide that you wanted to scale it? And maybe this is Tara coming in saying, hey, I see a lot of untapped potential, because it sounds like you were, really happy. You were doing the builds, you're selling, probably, I assume kind of just like one job at a time, but you had good, something good going that you're really happy with. What was it that made you want to, take this thing to the next level and decide to really focus on scaling?
Absolutely. So I think it was a couple things. One of it being just the environment outside, just watching opportunity growth, families spending more time at home, seeing a lot more families coming together, creating multi-generational homes, and really focusing on the outdoor space and making it part of their living space. So there was opportunity there. There was a little bit of, I was tired of working for somebody else. I was putting in, 80 hours a week, and just nights and weekends sometimes. And I come home and all that work went to somebody else and not me. And we also had our future. We have a couple grandbabies now, and we want to be able to pass something down to our family. And so there was just like a bunch of different elements that just came together. And it was more of an intuitional feeling of like, I think this is the moment. And also, nothing against you, but he's getting older. Let's be honest. Let's be real. This is a reality. He can't be on the job site forever. So just all those things came together at one point, and we just read the room. And I put in my notice and came on board. And it was a little challenging at first. I'm not going to lie. I think there was a lot of growing pains between the two of us because you're with each other 24/7 practically some days and some weeks, and, working together all day and then trying to deal with life and deal with home life all, afterwards. It can be very challenging. And there was probably a little bit of some sparks in the beginning between us, but we had a lot of real deep conversations saying, okay, we need to set boundaries. We need to set, this is your lane, you stay in this is my lane, I stay here. But then we know when to cross lanes if we have to. But the biggest thing was the trust. The trust was, I always talked about what I did. He would never really get it, what I did for a living, but now he sees it. He sees the results. So there was a huge hurdle that we had to overcome with trusting that I know what we're doing. I know what we're talking about. I know what we need to do, and him letting go and just saying, okay, I'm going to let you do it. I'm going to trust you, and being able to move forward. So to get back to your question, but there was just a lot of elements in place that it came together. We just realized that this was a great opportunity for us to take advantage of and grow. So
I love that you seized on that opportunity too. A lot of people, it's like they feel like they're sitting waiting for that lucky moment. And it's like, no, you got to have your eyes open. And when you see an opportunity, if it's the right opportunity, you got to jump on it. And it sounds like you guys really did a great job of that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And we, things kind of grew a little bit when our sons started coming of age. And, being on the job site as kids and helping out was one thing. But then, our middle son, Jake, came on full time several years back. And that was awesome. Like, I got to work with my son every day, and, I'm teaching him how to do things. And it was like, man, our projects were like, when you take a one-man operation and then you add a second person to that team, it doesn't just double it doesn't cut the time in half. It doesn't double productivity. It like tripled, quadrupled. I'm hanging floor joists by myself, and it's doable. But you put somebody on both ends of that floor joist, and they just go up a lot quicker, And I found myself a lot less sore at the end of the day, and so that kind of started the growth. Tara definitely having like the foresight to say, hey, we need to buy a new truck. We need to start looking at hiring more people. I really looked at hiring more people as not as like
as an expense,
a cash flow,
as
an expense,
more like an expense. And I think there's a lot. You can't look at employees as an expense. I think your workforce is, and a lot of people, we talk about this often, Eric. Your workforce is probably your most valuable resource. You will not be where you're at if you don't have a good workforce, and you don't treat them well because they're an investment. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we pride ourselves. I know that's one of the biggest things we pride ourselves on when we hire our employees. We make sure that they're developed. We develop them. But yeah, it's.
And now it's different. Now you get to teach, that next generation to swing a hammer. You know,
there's something about.
We watched guys that came on with literally no experience. Just one guy came from he painted cars. Great painter.
Yeah.
Didn't have a passion for it. Didn't love it. Wanted to come on board, and I was hesitant. I'm like, this dude paints cars in his shop.
Not hesitant.
I don't know.
We were betting he was not going to make it, but maybe.
But a great kid,
months.
right?
Kid.
Like,
he was, yeah.
Liked the guy a lot.
I should say was. He is.
He is, yeah. He's now a crew lead.
Yeah.
He's off today. He's buying his first home with his fiance, and they're able to do that, and.
He's been with us for almost 2 years.
Yeah, he's good at what he does.
Yeah, but he wants to grow with the company. He wants to get into sales. He wants to get into design. He wants to grow. So that passion, we keep going back to that. That's it. That's the root. It's that passion and finding those people that have that same drive that keeps us going too.
Yep.
So
when you first kind of you talked about staying in your lanes.
Yes.
What were the? I'm curious how those. What were those kind of those first bumpers? And I'm gonna assume Tommy was still doing the builds and on the tools, and and at what point did you see those start to change, where you realized you needed to pull Tommy out altogether, and then start filling the team out? What did that early kind of set of responsibilities look like? And Tommy, what got handed off that you were excited to hand off, and maybe what didn't you want to hand off?
Yeah, taxes. Oh my gosh, taxes. You can have it. I would do the corporate taxes every year, and it was like, I know there's a right way to do it, and there's my way. And my way was just January 1st, I would start the taxes for the whole season. I would do all the books, and but I was too busy during the summer. Like, how am I doing my books in the middle of the summer? I've got decks to build. And I was usually off in January. It was too cold to work, or you didn't have enough work, or whatever. So I did our taxes. And when we handed that off to a company to do our taxes, it was like, that was an aha moment for sure.
Yeah.
Because you realize, like, wait a minute, I can let you do it, and you're not going to screw it up. But if you do, you're insured to, be my accountant and, make sure I don't go to prison. Cool. Like, take it. That was an eye-opening experience, because what took me so much time, they were able to take over. Well, then, as things grew, Tara took on, all of the back office type stuff, like the real guts of the business, running the business, making sure bills are paid. And that allowed me to focus more on the sales.
Yes. Yep.
Then it was, like, we would hire another crew member, and eventually it got to the point where I could get off of the tools, and sales just kept coming in, and we kept growing.
He can focus on that. So I think that's one of the lanes that we recognized that he really needed to stay in, was the sales, because Tommy's ability to work with other people is incredible. The way he just it's so humbling hearing him on a sales call. He's not pushy at all by any means. I've seen his pipeline can be 2 years long. It's crazy to me that he's like, yep, just sold a deck. I've been working with them for 2 years. And I'm like, how does someone have those patience? I don't. So I know that sales was not my lane, but I do know that coordinating a policy and procedure behind sales, now that is my lane. And, that's where we kind of share some information, but we split off and do our own thing and come together and make it part of the company. Hiring people. That was another one that we recognized that it was better off putting it into the hands of an HR department and actually having a process and procedure, and being able to have someone else do that work and actually screen applicants and actually do an interview process and actually collect the forms that you need, versus him trying to do it. He's just, in his mind, he's like, I just want people. I just want people. And that would kind of set you up for failure at times if you just hire a bunch of people. So you really got to focus on that screening. So he knew that that wasn't his lane. So after we were going through our growing pains and having those sparks, we realized that we had our own lanes to stay in, things tended to run a lot smoother. But it's not perfect. Don't get me wrong. It's like any relationship.
It's near perfect.
So,
It's I mean,
it's
Eric, it's great.
I'm sure when you're thinking back when you started it versus today, it sure does feel good.
Yeah.
Man,
oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's
right now it's great.
wild.
It is.
You know?
It is.
So,
And I
so
think
it sounds like it sounds
a
like
good
you
marriage
figured out.
helps for sure.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, a good marriage helps for sure. Like,
Yeah.
you know, we know how to communicate within our marriage, and you know, that kind of transferred over pretty well to the business. You know.
Yeah. So I want to come back to that for a second, but Tara, what I heard you and both of you say is that there were some of these, tasks and these responsibilities that not only was it not in the best interest of the company to have Tommy doing it, but it sounds like you also decided that we ought to go and just find some partners and some other companies that could come in and help us do these things that you feel like they're better qualified, dealing with your taxes. I'm with you there too. I really prefer to have other smarter, more qualified people with the protection, but I mean, even hiring, I mean, what other, functions have you decided to, outsource and find other partners to help you do that?
Absolutely. So it's funny because this is a great segue, Eric. Job Tread's one of them.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that Tommy had to reframe his way of thinking is that, when we outsource anything or we use a software for anything, it's not an expense. It's an investment. And majority of the time, you're going to have a return whenever you invest in something. So using an accountant outside or using a software like Job Tread, those are things that are actually going to help you generate revenue. You just have to see how it does. So Job Tread definitely was one thing that we love. A little plug there. That's made our lives a lot easier. It's those spiral notebooks. It's the data analyzing that I need to be able to make sound decisions for the company. It's to show, what works and what doesn't work with our customers. So there's a lot to it. And also being able to give up trust and saying, okay, we're investing in this and they're going to be able to follow through with it. That was another hurdle that we had to go through whenever we would outsource anything. Other things that we outsource,
all of our social media.
All our social media is outsourced. Yep.
We've got a company, Video Punk, does all of our videos. They do all of our
social media
postings. We do maybe 15, 20 videos a month.
Yeah.
That
was a lane that we try to hold as long as we could, and then we really realized that is not our cup of tea, and we, you have to really get experts in.
Yeah.
So
everybody's got a camera in their pocket. All you gotta do is take it out and film, right? And then I got like 50 gig worth of videos that have never seen the light of day.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to do with it. Not really,
Yeah.
I'll still post pictures and videos of little stuff, but you really need somebody that's good at it and they can focus on it. We sell a lot of jobs and good sized projects because of the tools we have to sell the jobs.
Yes.
In the same way that, I can go out and build a deck with a hammer and a handsaw, like legit, but probably not gonna be as nice a deck as what we build with some of our custom tools and or specialty tools. And, programs like Job Tread or hiring the accountant or hiring the video production crew, like those are the same things. They give us better end results. We're trying to travel down the same path, but I can't get there nearly as fast if I'm using a hammer and a saw.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well said.
And so what is the team, we talked about, around 20 people. What does that look like today? What is everyone's kind of role within the company?
Yep. So currently we have, we run about 3 maybe sometimes 4 crews of 3 people. We also have part-time seasonal help that comes in whenever we would have like summer needs, or if we have like big projects that come in. We also have someone who works part-time that comes in and helps me with admin stuff. We just recently moved our son over to a higher role. He is now a construction project manager, which helps alleviate a lot of stress that Tommy's been experiencing. So we're also looking at one of our crew leads. He's moving into a sales position and wants to get into design. Excuse me. So it's a lot of moving parts, but we make sure that we are always on top of our structure, and we also allow ourselves room to change if we have to. But yeah, going from him doing most of it, and yeah, now we have all those different people doing different things helping us.
And so what do you know, when you bring on someone new, what sort of training, do you provide them? How do you get them up to speed? And, it sounds like everyone is you're bringing on employees, or, you're not using any trade partners or subcontractors. Is it always employees?
All
Yeah.
employees.
So how do you get them up to speed? What's that look like?
Well, it's pretty much hitting the ground running.
Yeah.
They're pretty much, they are, again, they're with the crew leads, night and day.
They're on their hip.
Yeah, they're on their hip. Thank you.
They're our crew leads are good at training.
Yes.
They are good at, like, the instructional side of things. You tell somebody, hey, go, whatever, go cut that board. Okay, I can cut a board, but I need it cut exactly on this line.
Mhm.
I mean, split that line down the middle. I want to see just a pencil lead on each board, or whatever. You have to be very specific when you are looking for specific results. Are we rough framing something, or is this detail finish work? Knowing which hammer to pick up. Like if you're driving a finish nailer, you're driving a stake in the ground.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people that we will hire, some of them, like I said, they have no background in construction, and honestly, Eric, I prefer that because people say, oh, they didn't develop any bad habits, but that's not really it. It's that there's so many ways to do the same thing, but we want it done a specific way because this is what we promised to our client. I want things pretty. I want it, like, the details really do matter.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
think,
important to me.
So some of the other training techniques we have, we do have a monthly meeting that we host for all crews, all staff, and it's usually after hours, on the clock, though, make sure they're taken care of course. And we feed them. They love that.
Yeah.
We all like to be fed. So we make sure that we target a specific training, whether it's something on the job site or, in the office. Like we developed a behavioral-based safety training for all our employees to take, even those who are not on the job site, because the way you behave on the job site really can cause, safety issues if you're not careful. So it's nice to be able to have those monthly meetings. We try to do a quarterly, like, big group anything outing of some sort, and end of the year parties. Those are always fun. So it may not always have training in it, but it's always bringing everybody together and trying to build up that morale as well.
It's always that team building. Yeah.
We also we're developing a training for leadership for our crew leads and for our project managers. We really want to focus in on how leadership works. It's not just somebody telling you what to do. It's understanding leadership styles like servant leadership or transformational leadership, or being able to adapt to different events or what have you. But we really want to invest into our leaders, so that way when they are training, they're doing the transactional part of it, but they're also doing it in a way that really invests into their employees as well to keep them.
I assume, Tommy, you're probably leading a lot of the training, the kind of the job site build training. Does that?
Actually, no.
No. You would think, yeah. No, it's funny. So 3 of our crew leads are, like Jake and I. Jake's our son. He and I worked side by side for many years. when Ian came on board, he and Jake and I worked together, and I was kind of peeling away from the build when Ian was coming aboard. Jake's wife had our one of our granddaughters last year, and Jake was on leave, so he could be with his family, and I was out on the job site working with Ian. And it was great because I had that time to work with him, and we had another crew working another project, but I really wanted to see kind of where Ian was for two reasons. I wanted to get a gauge on where he was. I let him run the job. You tell me what you need. I was the laborer. He cut every board. Like he was doing it all, and I'll do what you tell me to do. Mm-hmm. I think that was difficult for him. He was nervous.
Yeah, he was nervous.
But I needed to gauge two things. I needed to gauge how would Ian instruct me if he needs me to do something, but also how well did Jake teach Ian to now run a team. Yeah. And shortly after that, Ian had his own team, and it's been great. I mean, he's got it figured out. He understands the build. He understands the processes that we go through. And now it's just, okay, build on that. Like I need you to train. We talk a lot about we need you to train your replacement because you are not long for this position. Like if this company is to grow, we all have to grow with it. If it's right, we'll bring somebody in from outside and put them into place. But if at all possible, we would like everybody to grow with us.
Yeah.
Like most of the training is the crew leads.
How did you personally peel yourself away? I mean, you're so passionate about the build. I see people struggle with that all the time. Like they believe and they know that they will do it the best because they've been doing it. It's your baby. This is what you do. And now you're having to put your trust in your team, who has got a lot less experience, maybe little to no experience. Like, how did you personally handle that?
A lot of conversations.
Yeah, it was terrifying.
A lot of counseling sessions with me.
Yeah. It really was. Like, we had to talk it through. I mean, if we wanted to get to a certain place, it had to be.
Yeah.
So a big part of it was ordering extra material. I don't care how many times you got to cut that board, it needs to be right. And if that means we're throwing away a $100 board or whatever, throw it away. That customer didn't pay for mediocre work. They paid for solid ground to come in and deliver a certain level of expectation. And our guys deliver. And I mean, they deliver every time. Yeah. They know, we had a guy, it's 105 degrees 2 days ago, heat index of just ridiculous temperatures. And he's measuring on his rail, and he goes to cut it. And I mean, Eric, he kissed the blade to the rail and realized that's wrong. But it's done. Throw the rail away, you're done. So you got $500 in a rail, you throw that away, you get a new one. And he's going to beat himself up more than any conversation he and I could ever have. Yeah. It's just dude, it's 105 degrees outside. I'll make a mistake. You'll make a mistake. Anybody on this team can make a mistake. But it's how you respond or how are you going to, fix the mistake for the client, but then, fix yourself. How are you going to rewire that in your brain that, that everybody says, measure twice, cut once. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, but we don't. You get into a sense of, you take for granted how good you are, and then you screw up and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm not perfect. Yeah. But it's okay to make a mistake. Yeah. And, the people on the crew need to know that it's okay to screw up. Yeah. It's how they respond to that screw up that means the world. Yeah. Our guys are regularly getting, one of the guys got a $100 tip the other day, and it's that says a lot. Like when somebody's paying 50 grand, 100 grand for a deck, and the project's ending and they're handing out $100 bills to the crew. They don't have to do that. They did it because they saw something in those, people that are on that team, that inspired them to flip them $100 or buy them lunch or something. So
I'm really impressed with the way our crews they get Google reviews. Like they specifically will have a review about them, and that just feels great. And I think going back to your question about him learning to trust others, like we have a good sense, and we've talked about this, of being able to have space for improvement for ourselves and being able to forgive ourselves making mistakes, but understand that that's going to happen with our employees as well. So I think that kind of helped build that trust with us and the employees, and have constant conversations, keep them informed, talk with them, see how they're doing. Just a quick text, hey, how's your day going? Like those are ways to keep that trust and being able to hand off and allow them to be able to do the work. But also us being able to sit back and be like, okay, we know they got it. So
and it's still tough.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll ever be like, oh, I'm fine, like go build a deck.
I think it will be.
I'm still.
That's a goal of mine, Eric. That's a goal of mine.
We'll see.
Yeah. It'll be fine.
But I no longer.
If you have to hold somebody accountable and have a tough conversation, who's the enforcer here?
Woo! It's a two-way.
I think that'd be a tie.
It's a tie,
Kind of depending on what. Yeah. Honestly, depending on whose lane it's in.
And well, it depends on what happened. So, we've had incidents where there's bad behavior on the job site and it causes safety concern. So that's a conversation for me, because I'm a huge advocate for making sure that we're being safe. Not that you're not. It's just that, we want to make sure that we are, as a company, are taking the necessary steps to make sure that they have the education and understanding how to be safe. But then it's also a conversation with production. Like, because of these mistakes that you're making, you're slowing production down, you're slowing performance down, so it's kind of a multi-conversation. It's not just someone reprimands somebody, and we do have policy and procedures in place for extremities, write-ups and stuff like that, but we don't want it to get there. We want to we don't look at corrective action plans as a punitive response. We want to be able to develop our people. So to us, it's like, yeah, you made a mistake, but let's talk about it. Why did this mistake happen? Because they would learn from it. How else are they going to grow? So I think it's a multifaceted conversation from different people and different perspectives, and how to look at what happened and how they can grow from it themselves.
And I think too, right now we have all men on our crew. So every team member, I feel like, some of them didn't have the experience I had growing up. They didn't have a father that worked with his hands and could literally build anything. Just whatever. Their dad took a different career path. I feel like I have a responsibility to teach what I have to that next generation, regardless if it's my kids or somebody else's kids. So that's a responsibility I think we all have. I think as a society, we need to help teach people how to just do stuff. We actually have a program where we bring in high school students. Every summer we'll get, usually 6 kids or so. Maybe I shouldn't call them kids, but these guys coming out of high school, they're sophomore, junior, senior in high school, and just trying to figure out what they want to do for a living. Some of them will be in the trades. Some of them will think, I am never working that hard again, and they'll go back and get straight A's. And good for you.
Yeah.
But financially that's a loss. But we are able to teach that skill set to some people. When there's a problem, it needs to be less of a you did this, you did this, you did this, and more of a, hey, why did this happen? Was it my instructions weren't clear? Because I've struggled with that for a long time, because I think I know what I mean in my head. I want you to do this or whatever. And they do part of that, but it didn't translate down. And
Yes.
That's not their mistake. That's my mistake. So me learning how to instruct better, that's really changed a lot of things. And, I think that's the difference in how you reprimand or,
Sure.
check yourself. I don't know.
I'm picking up on something really interesting here, and you guys have kind of alluded to it throughout the whole thing. But like, I sense you two have a really great connection and really good communication. Like, I can tell, Tommy, how you're open up. I feel, versus like, kind of trying to project something or come up with this. Like, it's like, hey, look, my reality is my own reality. Like, sounds like you all have really, mastered the communication between yourselves, and you have a very high level of trust. It seems like you two are really on the same page. I'm curious though, like how did you all develop that, skill set and that teamwork together? Has working together been, were there any surprises? I mean, I see all the time, husband and wives try to work together, or even, family in-laws, and it turns into a huge disaster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
What has it been like for you all? And I mean, maybe what challenges have you had, and how have you overcome them?
So I think I think I have the responsibility of learning. Like I feel like we have to understand what we're getting into. So emotional intelligence is one thing that we had studied, and we use that to where we can have self-awareness, but also know what else is going on in front of us. So being able to develop yourself outside of the job site is extremely important. Not just understanding business operations, not just understanding, how to build something, but actually understand the sociology and the psychology behind the way people behave in an organization and organizational development. So having that foundation really helped us be able to sit down and say, okay, I'm seeing a problem here. Hopefully we're seeing it before it happens. And if we're not, and it blows up on us, how are we going to address it? There's times that we say, okay, let's give it a minute, let's process this, and then let's meet, bring our thoughts to the table. And then there's sometimes you don't have time for that. You just have to hit things head on, and you have to get through it. I think the biggest thing is to recognize that we're in it together. Right. And whether we're business partners or husband and wife, or we're a family unit, or we're just, coworkers, we're in it together. We have the same goal. We have the same, desire to make sure that we succeed individually and as an organization. So, what you might say may not be what I feel, but I can't disrespect that. And I can't not validate that. So we talk about validating feelings. I know. Feelings, but it's important because feelings are valid. Like just because you're not feeling the same way I am doesn't mean that it shouldn't exist. So understanding the emotional intelligence behind a lot of these situations is really important. So
yeah, I don't know. I think it just I think we've done really well working together. I think if a husband and wife are going to go into business together, they better have a rock solid marriage already. Like that has to be the foundation.
Yeah.
This business, trucks, tools, everything. I'll walk away from all of it. Like that stuff doesn't matter. Like your family matters, But when somebody goes into I know other business owners that are husband and wife, and they're at each other all the time, and it's like, they will say things like, "Oh, we just can't work together," and it's like, man, but you can barely live together, so why did you think you could work together? Like, I can't go to the office and work with some person at the office that I can't stand, and then be like, "Hey, you want to get married?" Like that wouldn't work. So why would the opposite be true? I think developing and as we're growing the business, we're growing our relationship, we're growing our marriage. We take time out. Like this weekend, we're getting away, just the two of us. We're going to jump in the truck. We're going to go.
Okay.
That's it. It's going to be me and her. And
shut down, disconnect from everything else. Yeah.
And there's date nights. There's, we do things together. If she's going to the grocery store to get something, or I'm going to the grocery store to get something, like, a lot of times we'll go together and like
just so we can spend time together, like without anything else.
If somebody thinks that's weird, like, you know what, it works for me. And I've never, I am happier today than I was yesterday, and I'm gonna be happier tomorrow. So it works.
That's awesome. That's really awesome to see. And again, I can feel the energy and the passion here. Does work come home to the dinner table?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I had to tell him we've clocked out.
Yeah.
We'll be on our way to some event or something, and he's going on, and I'm like, okay, babe, I clocked out. Sorry, we need a break. So we intentionally make sure that we communicate that and we respect that. Not only are we saying it, but like if someone says, hey, I don't want to talk about this right now, or I don't want to deal with this right now, we have to respect that on the other side. We talk about date night. Like we legit plan our date nights months out. Like they're on our calendars, like a meeting planner. Like any other meeting. Just because we know we need that rejuvenation, that time, away from everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But don't get me wrong, it's not perfect. I mean, we have our challenges. It's just, I think the biggest thing is understanding that each other's feelings are, validated. Number one, giving yourself room to improve on your own, and learning to be able to forgive very quickly. Because if you simmer and resent, that's just going to manifest into something. So being able to pull yourself out of that and forgiving yourself, allowing space to, breathe, and allowing a safe space to share your thoughts and feelings, you're really going to have a productive relationship. And I know it sounds buzzwordy, like productive, but it's true. Like it's not going to work otherwise. But not to say that everyone can do it. Like it's not for everybody. We know that.
Yeah. I mean, I would even go out on a limb to say, though, I mean, like just the skills that you've developed here within your marriage would likely translate very well to being leaders in the company, into communicating and working and helping other people, within your business to also, feel like they have a very strong, passionate relationship working for you and with you. How would you say that, has your marriage, do you think, had an impact on the culture that you've been able to create for all of your employees?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll answer that one.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Go ahead. I'll let
I do. I think it has impacted a lot of people. Like our employees. For one, they like both of us, or they're good at hiding it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I've had conversations with employees and people that are not employees, but are, they like take care of different parts of the company, without singling anybody out. But I had somebody tell me that they want to emulate our marriage within their marriage, like and the husband and wife both making that statement. Known them for years outside of business as well, but I was very taken aback by that. I was like,
that's neat.
What do you mean? Like, I don't know what you mean that you want to, you want to work on your marriage the way we do. But it struck me, like, I saw that in my parents. I saw that, in the way my father treated my mother was
immaculate.
It was it, man. Like,
yeah.
he was the guy. Like, looked up to him a lot. I learned how to be a man, how to be a husband, how to be a father, how to be, a carpenter, and it's cool. So to see someone else come to me and say that, I'm like, that's great, and at first your initial reaction is like, oh no, like whatever, but it was like, you know what? Yeah. Like,
it's been a lot of work. That. Yes.
And this is what it takes, and it takes developing those skills, those communication skills, be a good human being to everybody. And then it'll be really easy to be a good human being to your wife. Like, you love her, but like, be a good person to everybody that you come into contact with. And that's going to be really good practice for when you get home. I am not always taking my own advice. I'm not always going to be like forgiving of everybody, and I'll butt heads with people. Like, we're all human, but if you care enough to be a good person, it's going to translate into every other aspect of your life. And, if you want to be a good athlete, you better go to the gym, you better go to practice, you better eat healthy, you better whatever. You have to fuel that passion with the right things. Well, if you want to be a good husband, you have to fuel that with the right things. If you want to be a good business owner, like, you got to do the work. It doesn't just magically happen. Like you said, you can't just sit around waiting for like, oh, I got lucky and developed this software company that helps companies make all this money. Like, glad you did, but I don't think you got lucky, right?
Yeah.
There's some hard work with it. Yeah.
So it's, I don't know. That's just kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah. I think. Oh, go ahead.
No, I think that's great advice. I wholeheartedly agree.
Great. Yeah, one of the things that I talk often with our kids. We have 4 children, and 2 of them are married currently, and I share with them that when you're married or you're in a very deep relationship with someone, there's really 3 people involved. You have yourselves, your individual, yourself and them, but you also have the relationship. The relationship itself is a person, and you have to feed them, you have to nourish them, you have to take care of them, you have to give them breaks, you have to challenge them. If you don't, the relationship just will not sustain. It's not easy at all by any means. It's hard work, and it's really, I think some of the hard challenges is like owning up and taking accountability when you know you are in the wrong, and being able nudge.
I'm never wrong.
He's never wrong. Yeah, we know. Yeah. So it takes a lot of work and practice, but understanding like the bigger picture of it, like what is my relationship with him really going to impact? And not only has it been good for ourselves, but it's been good for our children, and now it's good for our business and the people that we're around. It's about sharing that, I guess, sharing the love.
Yeah.
Now, well, I want to know, can I sign up for marriage counseling? Do marriage coaching here? Maybe that's a new business.
Yeah.
My wife and I would really benefit from spending some more time with y'all.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. I'm gonna stay in my lane, Eric.
All right, future business idea. How
There
about
you
that?
go.
There you go.
All right.
Well, this has been really awesome. Like, I really appreciate y'all coming on, opening up just about not only your business and how you've grown it from just you, Tommy, to now having a full team behind you, but also to your relationship and to your marriage and how all of that is translated back into the business, because it really is like a very solid point that you got to have a strong foundation going into this. If you're going to work with your spouse, make sure that marriage is your priority. You definitely don't want to risk that. Certainly wouldn't be worth letting a business destroy the marriage. So I think it's really great advice. But again, I see firsthand how you all are have been able to take those relationship strengths that you've built with each other to also help lead the rest of your company here. And I just I think it's really awesome. It's inspiring. I'm gonna actually have my wife. Maybe we'll rewatch this episode together, because it's it feels like very contagious. Like just seeing how happy you all are and how you're working so well together is you're just such great role models. And I hope that everybody out there listening will again, even if you're not working with your spouse, like take their advice here and take it home to your family and to your relationship, or take it to your relationship with your employees, and have that open and honest conversation. Like, learn to forgive quickly. Like, there's no reason to carry around, resentment and baggage and contempt. Like, you've got to, really just get everything out on the table, address things head on, have those conversations, and then move forward. And that's how you build, very strong and successful companies and teams. And, I love your focus on the people and building a great company and culture. I think that is, the secret sauce to any great business. Is it's the people, getting the right people on the team, and then developing them, training them, and being more than just a job. and you guys are living that every day. You've done a great job. I'm just I'm so honored that that we're a partner here with you as just as your software provider, but it's really is very inspiring to see what you all have been able to accomplish, and I wish you all the best and continuing to grow this business, and look forward to seeing what the next several years where you take it. It sounds like you got really big aspirations, and it's just really awesome to see how you've been able to have so much success. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Builder Stories. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained valuable insights that can help you in your journey along the way. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave us a review. And as always, if you or someone you know has a story to share, please contact us at builderstories.com. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Eric Fortenberry, and remember, every builder has a unique story. Keep building yours.